What if I told you that the ground beneath your feet isn't really solid? That our whole sense of a stable, trustworthy reality is just plain wrong? It's a wild thought, and it kind of gets to the heart of a huge choice we're all facing.
You see, there's this idea that what we call solid is just a flimsy repulsion between atoms. It suggests the cosmos is fundamentally chaotic, maybe even untrustworthy. It's the feeling that we're just adrift out here, and that, well, that can be absolutely terrifying.
So when we're faced with that kind of deep, cosmic uncertainty, humanity tends to go down one of two very, very different roads. And the big question for us right now is, which road are we on?
So, do we fight it? Do we try to seize control, to master the universe through sheer force of will and relentless engineering? Or do we learn to yield, to find power not by fighting the current, but by adapting to it? These are really the two great competing philosophies of our age.
All right, let's dive into that first path. This is the obsession with control. It's the relentless quest to impose our own order on a universe that we see is fundamentally chaotic. This is the path of the engineered God.
And this drive, this ambition, it's perfectly captured by an agency with one single, incredibly bold mission: to make sure the United States is never, ever surprised by technology. An agency that tries to literally invent the future before it even happens.
And just think about it for a second. DARPA consistently works about 20 years ahead of the curve. The internet, GPS, self-driving cars, even the AI that's everywhere now. All of these technologies that completely define our modern world were born from this intense, focused drive to control and predict what's next.
So, how do you justify that kind of massive, centralized power? Well, a lot of the time, the argument sounds a lot like this famous line from a movie. It's the idea that this powerful, maybe even grotesque system is a necessary shield, a wall that protects all of us from the chaos we're so afraid of.
But here's the thing. This path comes with a huge warning label, one that was issued more than 60 years ago by President Eisenhower himself. He saw the danger of a permanent arms industry getting tangled up with a massive military, creating this concentration of power that could threaten the very democracy it was supposed to be protecting.
But the danger isn't just about politics, right? What happens when the actual systems we build to create control get so complicated that they start developing their own cold, indifferent logic? A logic that has nothing to do with human needs.
To really get our heads around this, we need to bring in the work of a truly brilliant thinker named Stafford Beer. He was a pioneer in a field called cybernetics, which is basically the science of how complex systems control and communicate, whether we're talking about an animal or a machine.
Okay, so to get what Beer was talking about, you have to understand this one key concept: variety. It's just a technical term for complexity. Think of it as all the possible choices, all the possible actions, all the possible states of being in the world. And right now, our world is seeing an absolute explosion of this variety.
And this sets up a huge clash. On one side, you have the messy, complex, unpredictable reality of the world and all the unique people in it. And on the other side, you have our institutions desperately trying to reduce all that variety to basically squash us all into neat, simple, manageable boxes.
And according to Beer, when a simple system tries to manage complex people, you just get absurd policies. The rules don't actually fix the real problems, they just try to simplify everything, and you end up with what he called bogus things.
And this is where it gets really serious. This is the human cost. When you take a person's unique complexity, all their hopes, their dreams, their struggles, and you boil it all down to a single data point or a statistic, you lose the person. They become completely invisible to the system.
And you see the tragic results of this failure all around us. People who feel fundamentally lost, who can't hold down a job, who are so disconnected they don't even bother to vote. They start to feel like a total cipher, completely anonymous. It's a deep, deep despair that can sometimes lead to terrible violence, lashing out from a place of complete isolation.
So, okay, if that rigid top-down control is failing to handle the world's complexity, what's the alternative? Well, cybernetics doesn't just point out the problem. It also offers a solution. And it's one that's inspired by the incredible adaptability of nature itself.
You know, Beer put it pretty bluntly. He said, we're basically trapped by our old ways of thinking. The very models of control we're taught, the ones we use to run our businesses and our governance, they're the very things that got us into this mess in the first place. We need a whole new playbook.
And this is the key. This is the central law of the whole thing. Only variety can absorb variety. It means you can't manage a complex, high-variety system with a simple, low-variety one. You can't fight a flood with a teacup. To manage a complex society, you need a system that is just as complex, just as adaptive as the society itself. So, using this law, Beer designed what he called the viable system model. It's essentially a blueprint for an organization that can actually survive and adapt. It's inspired by the human nervous system, so it's not a rigid pyramid. Instead, it creates this beautiful balance between day-to-day work and future planning, between central coordination and local autonomy, allowing the whole thing to learn and evolve without breaking.
And this really gets us to the core difference, doesn't it? The traditional top-down hierarchy is like a big, strong oak tree. It seems powerful, but when a big enough storm comes, it just snaps. A viable system, on the other hand, is like a willow. It's flexible, it bends, it adapts, it embraces complexity, and because of that, it survives. Which brings us right back to where we are now, to this huge crossroads. With the explosion of AI and all these other powerful new technologies, we are facing this fundamental choice with more urgency than ever before in human history.
So, what's it going to be? Do we keep going down that path of the engineered God, trying to achieve total control through our technology? Or do we embrace the wisdom of the willow and start building systems that give us adaptive freedom?
When you really boil it down, it's a choice between two completely different futures. One path offers us the illusion of absolute control, but the price might be our own humanity, becoming slaves to the cold logic of the very systems we built. The other path offers a chance at survival, at resilience, not by fighting the universe, but by finally finding our place within it. So here we are, standing on the edge of what could be our final invention, and we're left with this incredibly stark choice. Do we try to seize the throne of the gods, or do we learn to surrender to the flow, and in doing that, maybe, just maybe, finally find a home in the cosmos?